In this video, we're going to talk about color temperature. Now, colors are anything on your color wheel: red, yellow, blue, green, violet, purple. Those are your hues or your colors. And not only are there warm colors and cool colors on the wheel, but also each color can have a variation that could be either warm or cool. We're going to use this example of a painting by Vincent van Gogh, and we're going to do our own version of it. But I'm going to show you, for example, in this one, he's using cool and warm yellow. So there are lots of reasons why this is important for you to know, but one of the main reasons is that cool colors and warm colors work really well together. And if you're using the same hue like yellow and you know how to find a cool and a warm yellow and know where to place them to make things work well for you, then you're going to make better paintings, and that is what our goal is. So let's just look at this for a minute as our example. So the sunflowers here are a warm yellow, and they're warm because this yellow leans more towards orange. The background and some of the highlights in the sunflowers, but mostly the background here, is a cool yellow, and it leans more towards a greenish blue. So when you're looking at any colors, whether they be red or blue or yellow, even green, if you mix a little bit of white with it and tint it, it will help you to see which way it leans more towards, yellow leaning more towards orange or leaning more towards blue, green the same way. But all hues have a temperature, so they're either going to be a little cooler or a little warmer. And the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to just do some color swatches with you with some paint. And when I have made our list of paints that I recommend that you have, I tried to give you both a warm and a cool color in red and blue and yellow and green, so that you'll be able to make the best paintings that you can. Okay, so let's begin with the yellow. So I'm going to start with cadmium. This is cadmium yellow, and this one is yellow ochre. And just by putting them down here, you can see that one is definitely warmer than the other. Okay, so we're just going to do this. We'll put all of our cool colors on this side and all of our warm colors on this side. So this is a cadmium yellow, and it is cool. Okay, now let's take some of, I've still got some of that cadmium yellow on my brush, hang on. Okay, now let's take some yellow ochre, and you can see that leans more toward orange, and it is definitely warmer. That's what you have to kind of repeat in your mind when you're looking at color to tell if it is warm or cool. Is it closer to blue or is it closer to orange? Okay, so we're going to do the reds. This is alizarin crimson and cadmium red. Okay, so cool colors are going to lean toward blue. Warm colors lean toward orange. Okay, so alizarin crimson That is a cool red. And cadmium red is a warm red. It leans more towards orange than blue. Alright, now let's look at our blues. Blues can be tricky. And with these, it helps me to think, does it lean more toward purple or more toward green? Because purple would be warm. And cerulean blue is a cool blue. And ultramarine blue is a warmer blue, which is very hard to see. The blues are very hard for me to grasp. Okay, but the greens, I'm going to show you, the greens are really easy. This is sap green and phthalo green, which is a viridian green. This is dried, so let me try to use a tool and get some out. I almost never use this color, so that's one reason why it's dried in there. Okay, the tube is completely dried out. So this end down here has some paint in it. And I'm going to take my X-Acto knife and I'm going to just cut a little hole down here. And we'll squirt it out from the other side. There we go. Okay. So with green, this is viridian or phthalo green. It leans more towards blue, so that makes it cool. It's more like an aqua blue-green. And sap green would be a warm green. Okay, so we said these are all cool and these are all warm. This is cadmium yellow and yellow ochre. This is alizarin crimson, and this is cadmium red. This is cerulean blue, which I can never spell. And this is ultramarine. This is viridian, or this is actually phthalo viridian, but it's a cool green. And sap is a warm green. Okay, so why does this matter? Why am I even doing a lesson on this? I'm going to show you. for a general rule, when you are painting, especially painting flowers, like if we were to paint this flower here, you can see this part here is a warm yellow. The petals are a cool yellow. And this one here, the whole thing looks like it is a warm yellow, but if we were to paint this, we could make all of these highlights a cool yellow and the shadowy darker parts in there a warm yellow. Can you see that? Just by looking at it here, you can kind of see that this warm colors can complement the cool colors, and you can work and use those together to get lots of dimension in your paintings. Now, for a general rule, cool colors are going to recess. They're going to be pushed back, and warm colors kind of come forward. So like in this painting here by Van Gogh, this cool yellow in the background is pushed back, and these warm colors in these sunflowers come forward. Same thing with his vase here. The top part is a warm yellow and it comes toward you, and then this bottom part does the opposite. So when you're using your paints, this is not something that you've got to get exactly right all the time. But if you know a little bit about it, and you know that alizarin crimson and cadmium red are two different temperatures of red, then when you're using those together in a flower, let's just take this one. Here's a red flower. You can use a little bit of both of those reds to paint a flower that is going to have lots of dimension and difference in color temperature, because this real flower does. I mean, it has, I don't know if you can see it or not, but it has a little bit of alizarin crimson and a little bit of cadmium red. Can you see that? So using colors that are different temperatures, they will play off of one another and they will work really well together in your paintings, so that you don't struggle quite as much with getting all of your shadows in there. If you'll look at this, Van Gogh doesn't really have any shadows. There's not even really a shadow underneath here. I mean, there's a dark line right there, one little line, but as far as lots of different darks and lights and things like that, there's not really a lot of it. It's really just color temperature that he's played with here. So let's try that for ourselves. So we're going to use, I'm just going to use my paper here, and we're going to do our own version of Van Gogh's sunflowers. Okay, so we're going to begin with, I'm just going to use a small brush, and I'm going to use some sap green. I don't know if you can see all of my palette over here. Let's move it over a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to use just a little bit of sap green, and I'm going to start with this horizon line here. We're just going to put in some basic shape. It doesn't have to be exact. We're just making our own version of this. Okay, so he's got one flower here, and then another one here, and one behind it, and then we've got one coming down here, and a leaf over here, another one back here, And you can add or subtract your flowers. You don't have to make it exactly like this. This is just for practice. I'm not going to have enough room the way I have mine planned out here, so the idea is just for us to see how he used color temperature to achieve what's here. And there's one more right here. Okay, and then there is this curved line here on the vase. All right, I'm going to get out a little bit of white. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put in this cool yellow background. So that is going to be our cadmium yellow, and I'm going to mix it with some white. So I'm tinting it. When you add white to something, that becomes a tint. And like we said, when you paint with cool and warm colors in the same hue, one color is going to recede, and that's usually going to be your cool color. So when you know things like that, it helps you. Like, for example, if you are painting, let's say if you're painting a white flower and you're not sure what to use to make the shadows, you would, most of the time I would in the past, just go straight to a gray. So you would think, okay, if something is white, then the shadow around it would be gray. But that's not necessarily going to be true, and it's not going to be the prettiest painting that you could do. If you're painting like a warm white flower, let's say it's a cream colored white flower, then you would need shadows that are cool. So you would need to add a little bit of a blue or a little bit of a lavender in there to get those shadows that are really pretty. So you can use color to make your shadows and your highlights rather than tinting or shading. Instead of adding white and adding black, you can still get that definition of color by just using something from a different temperature. Okay, and I'm going to work kind of quickly, but you can take your time and do this however you need to. Okay, so now we've got our cool background, and this area here is also this cool yellow. And now let's work on the actual sunflowers. And for them, we're going to use our warm yellow, which is yellow ochre. Also, Indian yellow is a warm yellow. Okay, so he's got these really textured, fluffy areas, and some of my green just mixed in there with it, but that's okay. I'm just putting in some color for right now. And I need some more yellow ochre. Yellow ochre is a paint that is opaque, and the Indian yellow is more translucent. You can see through it a little more. Okay. Alright, so even though I don't really have very much detail going on here, already you can see that the warm yellow is coming forward and the cool yellow is pushing backwards. So let's do the top part of our vase here. I think this flower needs to come down a little bit more. Okay. So now it looks like the centers are green. So I'm going to take my sap green and just tap that in there. And it looks like I missed a flower over here. Okay, I'm going to go back to my smaller brush. And let's put in some of these stems with our sap green. And there's a leaf here. Mine may turn out a little more impressionistic, even more so than his. Okay, so I'm gonna have another stem back here. And this one has some leaves on the side over here. This one has some leaves coming out over here and over here. And up here. Okay, let's take a little white and mix it with our yellow, with our green, our sap green. And then we can add some spots that have a little highlight there, but not too much. Okay, so can you already see we're just using yellow and green? And you can already see how this color temperature is definitely working really well. Okay, so let's just take this one for example, this flower right here. The center of it has some orangey tint to it. Tint's not the right word, but I'm going to add some cadmium red to my yellow ochre. And that's going to give me a little more of that orangey red. And on this one too. And it looks like there's some on this one back here. Okay, so and then there's a little on the bottom of this, and maybe some in here. There's so much texture in this flower here. It looks like there's just really gobs of paint just really splotched on there. So let's move to doing something like this. So this yellow is a little in between. It's a little bit, it's a golden yellow, but it's got a little bit of it looks like it's got a little bit of some cool yellow mixed in there with it. So let's mix a little bit of cadmium yellow with our yellow ochre and a little bit of white and see what color we get. It's really it's like a tan color. That's not what I was hoping for. Okay, so let's try something else. We've mixed, what we did was we mixed warm and cool together, and I'm thinking we may need to mix warm and warm. And that's not giving me the color that I want either. So let's get out some more cadmium. Let's try some more cool yellow. So a lot of cadmium, cool yellow, and a little bit of yellow ochre. And let's see if that gives us what we're looking for. And I think that is what is going to do the trick. Okay, so we've got all of these petals here. And like I said, mine's going to be very impressionistic. Let's add a little bit of white. Okay, and then there's some of those petals in here. I don't want to get too cool with it. So I got a little bit of yellow ochre and a little bit of cadmium just really all over my brush. Okay, and then we've got some little dots around the center. And some more green needs to be in there too. Okay, I'm just going to keep going. Gonna really load up these. They look like teddy bear sunflowers. Lots and lots of fluffy paint texture. Okay, this one over here is the same. It's got a little bit of a lighter. And then these here, definitely full of texture. Okay, now let's add a little bit of this cadmium yellow in there. And just a spot or two. And we've got petals here. And that center there is a good bit darker. I need to darken it up. I need some more green. But as you can see, we're just kind of going back and forth, creating depth using different temperatures. Okay, we're going to do some petals here. And a few more on this here. This one here needs a center. Okay, and let's get some more yellow ochre. Gotta do this bottom part here. And his horizon line here is blue, and it looks ultramarine. So let's just grab some ultramarine and do this. And this. And this. There's a little bit here. And some down here. And it looks like some of these darker spots, I believe he's used ultramarine in there. And I need to do a little more. I wonder if I add a little ultramarine to my yellow ochre, if that won't give me a little bit of a shadow. Yeah. Okay, so ultramarine, blue, and yellow ochre gave me that little shadowy area right in there. So maybe we need to do that on some of these flowers here also. That helps with the texture a lot. So sometimes it's just a matter of just trying something and see if it works. And for me, just using that little bit of ultramarine blue worked really well to make some little shadows in there. Okay, now let's compare. I think I need a little better green over here in this center part. Mix a little bit of white with it. And maybe we need a little bit of cadmium yellow in our green in a few spots to brighten it up. I've got a few little holes there where I've left some white, so I'm just going to go in there and cover those up a little bit. Okay. Alright, so if you guys can see this, I'm really amazed at how much you can do with just yellow, 2 different colors of yellow, because we used yellow ochre and cadmium yellow, a little bit of red, some sap green. We used a tad bit of ultramarine blue, but not really very much, and came out with something that is really good. Let me go over this a little more. So I don't know what you guys think about it, but this was a lot of fun for me, and I hope that it helped you to see how color temperature can really help you in your paintings. Remember, cool colors are receding colors, and warm colors are coming at you, coming towards you. They're coming out of the canvas, out of the painting. For the most part, that's not always the case, but for a general rule, it is. And you can put your name. Vincent put his name here, so you could put your name on your vase also. And I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and hope you will go now and make some swatches of color, try some different things, play with your paint, and see what happens.